Why your sourdough starter isn't rising? Fix it now. Your sourdough starter won't rise, but it's probably not dead. It's just starving. In the next few minutes, you'll learn the 7 silent killers that keep starters flat, and the 1 protocol that wakes them all up. How sourdough starter actually works. To fix your starter, you first need to understand what it actually is. A living colony of wild Saccharomyces, cerevisiae yeast and Lactobacillus bacteria working together to eat flour. Every time you feed it, those microbes digest the carbohydrates in flour and produce carbon dioxide as a byproduct, and that CO2 gas is exactly what makes dough rise. This process is called fermentation, and it only works if both the yeast and the bacteria are healthy and hungry. If either one gets weak, your whole starter fails. So, when your starter won't rise, you're not dealing with a dead culture. You're dealing with a malnourished or confused one, and understanding why tells you exactly how to fix it. Mistake. Feeding on no schedule. Your first killer is feeding your starter whenever you remember. No consistency, no rhythm, just chaos, and the yeast and bacteria cannot adapt to an unpredictable food supply. When you feed at the same time every single day, the microbes learn to anticipate that meal and ramp up their activity for it. But if you skip days or double feed randomly, they go dormant or die off waiting. The fix is dead simple. Feed your starter every day at the same time, without exception. If you can manage 24 hours apart, your yeast and bacteria will thrive within days. Mistake. Using the wrong flour. Different flours ferment at completely different speeds, and using the wrong one will make your starter either sluggish or impossible to read. Bread flour and all-purpose flour both have 12–13% protein, which feeds yeast and bacteria at a predictable rate, but whole wheat flour, with its bran and extra nutrients, ferments 30–40% faster, so your timeline becomes unreliable. Rye flour ferments even faster, because it has less gluten structure, meaning your starter will peak and collapse in half the time you'd expect. Confusing and demoralizing. Stick with bread flour or all-purpose as your baseline. They're the most stable, most predictable choice until your starter is rock solid. Mistake. Wrong temperature. Temperature is the master control knob of fermentation. Too cold and your starter barely ferments. Too hot and you're cooking your microbes to death. Below 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 degrees Celsius, fermentation nearly stops. Yeast and bacteria are barely active, so even with daily feeding, you might see no visible rise for weeks. Above 85 degrees Fahrenheit, 29 degrees Celsius, you risk killing the bacteria and selecting only for heat-tolerant yeast, which throws off the flavor and weakens the rise. You get a weak, one-dimensional starter. The golden zone is 70–75 degrees Fahrenheit, 21–24 degrees Celsius. If your kitchen is colder, move your jar to the top of the fridge or into an oven with just the light on, and it will wake up within 48 hours. Mistake. Not discarding before feeding. You're feeding a jar that's already 80% full of spent starter, which means your microbes are eating stale, depleted flour with no room for the fresh food you just added. By weight, the ideal ratio is 1:2:2, 1 part mature starter, 2 parts fresh flour, 2 parts water. This ratio gives your yeast and bacteria a feast relative to their population size. If you only feed without discarding, you're doubling or tripling the population without enough food, so they compete, stress, and weaken. Your starter stays flat and sour. Discard half or more every time you feed, then add equal weights of flour and water. Your starter will double in vigor within 6–8 hours at 70–75 degrees Fahrenheit. Mistake. Hostile jar environment. You're using tap water and sealing the lid airtight, 2 invisible saboteurs that kill your starter's viability without any obvious warning. Chlorine in tap water, added to kill pathogens in your drinking supply, also kills the beneficial bacteria and yeast you're trying to cultivate. Use filtered water, spring water, or let tap water sit open for 24 hours to dechlorinate it. An airtight lid traps the CO2 your microbes produce, creating anaerobic conditions and acid buildup that stresses your culture. The result looks dead, but is actually just suffocating under its own gas. Cover your jar with a coffee filter, cheesecloth, or paper towel so gas escapes and oxygen enters. Switch to filtered or dechlorinated water, and your starter will come back within days. Mistake: judging readiness by bubbles alone. You see lots of bubbles and think your starter is ready, but bubbles are a liar, and they tell you fermentation is happening, not that it's happening correctly. A bubbly starter might be fermenting only yeast giving you volume, but no sour flavor, or it might have peaked hours ago and is now collapsing. Both look bubbly but will fail your bread. A truly ready starter has 3 signals. It smells distinctly sour and malty, not sharp or musty. It has actually doubled in size within 4-8 hours of feeding at 70-75 degrees Fahrenheit, and its surface is slightly glossy from protein breakdown, not just bubbly. Use all 3 cues together: smell, volume, and texture, and ignore bubbles alone. A weak smelling, slow rising, flat surfaced starter with lots of bubbles is not ready, no matter what it looks like. The Universal Rescue Protocol. Here's the one protocol that rescues almost every starter. Take 25 grams of your existing starter, whatever state it's in. Discard the rest, and use the 1:2:2 ratio by weight. That means 25 g starter plus 50 g flour. Use bread flour or all-purpose plus 50 g filtered or dechlorinated water. No variations, no shortcuts. Keep your jar loosely covered at 70-75 degrees Fahrenheit. Aim for room temperature, or put it somewhere warm, and repeat this exact feeding every single day for 3-5 days. Do not skip. Do not double feed. By day 3 or 4, you'll see your starter double within 4 hours of feeding. That's your signal that the yeast and bacteria are vigorous and your starter is alive again. The reassuring truth: starters are nearly impossible to actually kill. Almost every dead starter is just starving, cold, or suffocating, and this protocol fixes all 3. Remember, your starter needs consistency: daily feeding, the right food, bread flour, the right temperature 70-75 degrees Fahrenheit, and air loose cover. Get those 4 things right, and your starter will thrive. Start today. Feed 25 grams of your starter with 50 g flour and 50 g water. Cover loosely, and check for doubling tomorrow morning. Subscribe for sourdough wins from your first rescue feed onward.